At 2:17 p.m. on Valentine's Day, inside a church decorated with 200 red roses, a groom made a decision that would destroy a wedding, shatter a woman's world, and set off a chain of events that no one, not the guests, not the families, not even the police, could have predicted. By the end of that day, one life would be completely ruined, and another would never, ever be the same again. February 14th, Valentine's Day. A day meant for love, romance, and forever promises. But for 200 guests gathered inside St. Michael's Church in Portland, Oregon, it became the day they witnessed something they would never forget. The pews were filled. The candles were lit. The altar was draped in white linen and surrounded by bouquets of crimson roses. Soft piano music echoed through the vaulted ceiling. Everything was perfect. Everything was ready. Except for one thing. The groom never showed up. And what happened next, what the bride did in response to that humiliation, would shock an entire city, make national headlines, and force everyone who knew her to question everything they thought they understood about love, betrayal, and revenge. This is not a story about a cancelled wedding. This is a story about secrets buried so deep that not even the people closest to them saw what was coming. This is a story about a woman who everyone thought was broken, but who was actually 10 steps ahead the entire time. And this is a story that asks one simple, haunting question: when someone you love destroys you in front of everyone you know, how far would you go to make sure the truth comes out? Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Let's rewind. Let's go back to the beginning, to a time when none of this seemed possible. Her name, for the purposes of this story, was Emily Carter. 29 years old. Marketing coordinator at a mid-sized tech firm. Quiet, warm, fiercely loyal. The kind of person who remembered birthdays, who brought homemade cookies to office parties, who believed, deeply, genuinely, in the idea of forever. Her friends described her as someone who loved with her whole heart, someone who didn't do anything halfway. When Emily committed to something, she was all in. And when she fell in love with a man named Daniel Brooks, she fell hard. Daniel was 32. A financial consultant. Polished. Well-spoken. The kind of man who wore tailored suits to casual dinners and always seemed to have the right answer in every conversation. He had this calm, controlled energy about him, like nothing ever rattled him. He was respected at work, admired by colleagues, and known in his social circle as the guy who had it all together. On the surface, they seemed perfect for each other. Emily, with her warmth and optimism. Daniel, with his confidence and stability. They met at a charity gala in the fall of 2021, introduced by a mutual friend who swore they'd be a perfect match. And for a while, it seemed like they were. They dated for 3 years. Slow and steady. No drama. No public fights. Just two people building a life together, one quiet evening at a time. They moved in together after a year. A modest apartment in the Pearl District with hardwood floors and a view of the river. Emily decorated it with plants and throw pillows. Daniel kept his office meticulously organized, his desk always clear except for a single leather notebook and a silver pen. They had routines. Saturday morning farmers market. Sunday brunch at the corner cafe. Weeknight dinners where Emily cooked and Daniel washed the dishes. It all felt normal. Safe. Real. But if you looked closely, and very few people did, there were cracks. Small ones at first. Daniel started working late more often. He'd cancel plans last minute, saying a client needed him or a deadline had moved up. Emily understood. She didn't push. She trusted him. Then there were the financial things. Daniel handled all the bills. He said it made sense since he worked in finance. Emily didn't question it. But sometimes, when she'd ask about their savings or their wedding budget, he'd get vague. He'd say things like, "Don't worry, I've got it handled," or "We're fine, babe. Trust me." And she did. She trusted him completely. Even when his phone started buzzing late at night and he'd step into the other room to take the call. Even when he stopped talking about the future in the same excited way he used to. Even when, 3 months before the wedding, he seemed distant, physically present but emotionally somewhere else. Emily chalked it up to stress. Wedding planning, work pressure, the weight of making such a big commitment. She told herself it was normal. That every couple went through this. That once they got through the wedding, everything would go back to the way it was. She had no idea how wrong she was. February 14, 2025. Valentine's Day. Emily woke up at 6 in the morning in a hotel suite overlooking the river, surrounded by her bridesmaids. The room smelled like hairspray and champagne. There was laughter, music, the rustle of tulle and satin. Her best friend, Sarah, kept making jokes to keep the energy light. Her mom kept tearing up every time she looked at Emily in her dress. It was a beautiful dress. Ivory lace with a sweetheart neckline and a long train that pooled on the floor like water. Emily stood in front of the mirror, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. This was it. The day she'd been dreaming about since she was a little girl. The day she'd been planning for over a year. The day she would marry the man she loved. At 1:30 p.m., the bridal party loaded into cars and headed to the church. St. Michael's was only 10 minutes away, a historic stone building with stained glass windows and white wooden pews. When Emily arrived, the parking lot was already full. Guests were filing inside, dressed in their best, clutching programs printed on cream-colored cardstock. The ceremony was set to start at 2:30 p.m. Emily waited in a small room off the main hall, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and nerves. She kept checking her phone. Daniel hadn't texted her that morning. That was normal, she told herself. It was tradition. Bad luck to talk before the ceremony. But something felt off. She couldn't name it, but it was there, a tightness in her chest, a whisper in the back of her mind that something wasn't right. At 2:15 p.m., the wedding coordinator knocked on the door. Her face was pale. "Emily, we need to talk. The groom isn't here yet." Emily laughed. "He's probably stuck in traffic. Give him a few minutes." The coordinator hesitated. "We've been calling him. He's not answering." Emily's stomach dropped. She grabbed her phone. 3 missed calls from the coordinator. 2 from Daniel's best man. Nothing from Daniel. She called him. It rang. And rang. And then went to voicemail. She called again. Same thing. Her hands started to shake. Sarah stepped forward. "I'm sure he's fine. Maybe his phone died. Maybe he's just running late." But 15 minutes passed. Then 20. The guests were getting restless. The pianist kept playing the same prelude songs on repeat. The coordinator was pacing outside the room, whispering into her phone. And then, At 2:47 p.m., Emily's phone buzzed. A text message. From Daniel. 4 words. I can't do this. Emily stared at the screen. Her vision blurred. The room tilted. Sarah grabbed her arm. What does it say? Emily couldn't speak. She just handed Sarah the phone. Sarah read it. Her face went white. Oh my God. Emily, I'm so sorry. The coordinator came back in. What do we do? Do we tell the guests? Emily didn't respond. She was frozen, her mind trying to process what was happening. He's not coming. He cancelled. He left me. Here. In front of everyone. On Valentine's Day. Sarah was already on the phone, trying to reach Daniel's best man, his family, anyone who might know where he was. But no one had answers. No one had seen him. He was just gone. At 3:15 p.m., the coordinator made the announcement. The wedding has been cancelled. Guests sat in stunned silence. Some gasped. Others whispered. A few got up and left immediately, embarrassed, uncomfortable, unsure of what to say. Emily's mom was sobbing in the front row. Her dad looked like he wanted to punch a wall. And Emily just stood there in her ivory lace dress, surrounded by 200 red roses, and felt her entire world collapse. But here's the thing. Here's the part no one knew. Emily wasn't crying. She wasn't screaming. She wasn't falling apart. She was calm. Eerily calm. Because deep down, in a place she hadn't let herself fully acknowledge until that exact moment, she had known this was coming. If this hooked you already, don't forget to subscribe, like, and drop a comment because what happens next will absolutely shatter your expectations. The hours after the cancellation were a blur. Guests trickled out of the church, some stopping to hug Emily's parents, others avoiding eye contact entirely. The florist began packing up the roses. The caterer dismantled the reception setup at the hotel. The cake, 3 tiers of vanilla buttercream with fresh peonies, was never cut. Emily's bridesmaids stayed with her, but no one knew what to say. Sarah kept apologizing, as if she were somehow responsible. Emily's mom wanted to call the police. Her dad wanted to hunt Daniel down. But Emily said nothing. She sat in that small room off the main hall, still in her wedding dress, staring at the wall. At some point, she asked everyone to leave. Just for a little while. She needed to be alone. They hesitated, but eventually, they listened. And when the door finally closed, Emily pulled out her phone. She didn't call Daniel. She didn't text him. Instead, she opened her email. And she sent a single message to an address she'd been holding on to for 3 weeks. The subject line read, "It's time." Then she stood up, took off her veil, and walked out of the church. By the time the sun set on Valentine's Day, Daniel Brooks had vanished. Completely. His phone was off. His social media went dark. His apartment, the one he shared with Emily, was empty. Not just empty of him. Empty of his things. His clothes. His laptop. His toiletries. It was like he'd never lived there at all. Emily's family was frantic. They wanted answers. They wanted to know where he went, why he did this, what kind of man leaves his fiancée at the altar without a word. But Emily didn't seem interested in those questions. She moved through the next few days like someone in a trance. She took time off work. She stayed with her parents. She didn't cry. She didn't rage. She just waited. The media caught wind of the story within 48 hours. Local news picked it up first. Portland bride left at the altar on Valentine's Day. Then it spread. Social media exploded. Strangers weighed in with theories. Some said Daniel must have been having an affair. Others speculated he had cold feet. A few claimed he was secretly gay, or in debt, or involved in something illegal. The rumors were endless, cruel, and baseless. But Emily didn't respond to any of it. She didn't give interviews. She didn't post on Instagram. She didn't even defend herself when people started blaming her, saying she must have done something to drive him away. She just stayed silent. And that silence made people nervous. A week passed. Then two. Daniel's family released a brief statement through a lawyer. Daniel is safe and requests privacy during this difficult time. That was it. No explanation. No apology. Nothing. Emily's friends were furious. Sarah wanted to go to the press, to tell Emily's side of the story, to make sure people knew how much she was hurting. But Emily refused. She said, "Let them think what they want. It doesn't matter." And that's when people started to wonder. Why wasn't she angrier? Why wasn't she more broken? Why did she seem so controlled? Some people whispered that maybe she was in shock. Others wondered if she'd known all along. But no one, suspected the truth. 3 weeks after the wedding, the Portland Police Department received an anonymous tip. It came through their online portal. No name. No return information. Just a single sentence. Check Daniel Brooks' financial records from 2023 to present. The tip was vague, but it was enough to raise questions. A detective named Linda Ramirez was assigned to follow up. She ran a basic background check on Daniel. Clean record. No arrests. No red flags. But when she started digging into his finances, things got strange. Daniel had 3 bank accounts. One was joint with Emily. The other 2 were in his name only. The joint account looked normal. Rent payments. Groceries. Utilities. But the other 2 accounts showed large, unexplained deposits. Thousands of dollars. Sometimes tens of thousands. All coming from offshore accounts with names Ramirez didn't recognize. She cross-referenced the account numbers with federal databases. One of them was linked to a shell company registered in the Cayman Islands. Another was flagged in a fraud investigation from 2022. Ramirez requested a warrant. It took 2 weeks to process, but when it finally came through, she discovered something that made her stomach turn. Daniel Brooks wasn't just a financial consultant. He was running a Ponzi scheme. For the past 3 years, he'd been taking money from small business owners, promising them high-return investments, and then using new investors' money to pay off old ones. It was textbook fraud. And it was about to collapse. Ramirez found emails, spreadsheets, fake financial statements. Daniel had scammed over 40 people. Some of them lost their entire savings. One woman lost her daughter's college fund. Another man lost his late wife's life insurance payout. The total damage was estimated at over $2 million. And it was all about to come crashing down. The warrant also revealed something else. Daniel had booked a one-way flight to Mexico. Departure date, February 15th. The day after the wedding. He was planning to run. Ramirez sat in her office, staring at the evidence in front of her, and realized something chilling. Daniel didn't cancel the wedding because he got cold feet. He canceled it because he knew. He knew someone was onto him. He knew the investigation was coming. And he ran. But here's the part that didn't make sense. If Daniel knew he was about to be exposed, why did he wait until the wedding day? Why not disappear a week earlier? A month earlier? Why risk the public humiliation? Ramirez couldn't figure it out. Until she received a second anonymous tip. This one came with an attachment. A PDF file. 23 pages. Bank statements. Emails. Photos. Text message screenshots. All of it meticulously organized. All of it pointing directly to Daniel's fraud. And at the bottom of the last page, a single sentence. He thought he could get away with it. I made sure he didn't. Ramirez stared at the document. Then she looked at the email address it came from. A burner account. Untraceable. But the IP address led back to a coffee shop in Portland. A coffee shop 2 blocks from Emily Carter's parents' house. And that's when Ramirez understood. Emily knew. She knew everything. And she had been planning this for weeks. If you're still watching right now, comment I'm still here. This story is about to take a turn no one expects. It started 6 weeks before the wedding. Emily came home early from work one day. Daniel wasn't expecting her. He was in his office, door closed, talking on the phone. She could hear his voice through the wall. He sounded stressed. Angry. She stood outside the door and listened. I told you, I just need 2 more weeks. I can cover it. No, she doesn't know. She's not going to find out. Emily's heart started pounding. She pressed her ear to the door. Who was he talking to? What didn't she know? She heard him hang up. She quickly walked to the kitchen, pretended she'd just arrived. Daniel came out a few minutes later. Hey, babe. Didn't know you'd be home early. Emily smiled. Slow day. Thought I'd surprise you. He kissed her on the forehead. That's sweet. I've got some work to finish up, though. Give me an hour? She nodded. Sure. No problem. But the second he went back into his office, Emily felt it. The doubt. The fear. The tiny voice in her head whispering that something was very, very wrong. That night, after Daniel fell asleep, Emily took his laptop from his office. She knew his password. He'd never hidden it from her. She opened his email. And what she found made her physically sick. Messages from people she didn't know. Angry messages. Threatening messages. People demanding their money back. People saying they'd been lied to. People saying they were going to the police. Emily scrolled through months of emails. She saw the offshore accounts. The fake investment documents. The promises Daniel had made that he never intended to keep. She saw everything. And she realized that the man she loved, the man she was about to marry, was a fraud. A liar. A criminal. She wanted to scream. She wanted to wake him up and demand answers. But she didn't. Because in that moment, sitting in the dark with his laptop glowing in front of her, Emily made a decision. She wasn't going to confront him. She was going to destroy him. Over the next 6 weeks, Emily became someone she didn't recognize. She copied every email, every document, every bank statement. She took screenshots of text messages. She tracked his movements. She recorded phone calls. She built a case so airtight that there would be no way for him to talk his way out of it. And she did it all while smiling at him over breakfast. While kissing him goodnight. While pretending she had no idea what he was doing. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done. There were nights she cried herself to sleep. Mornings she woke up and felt like she couldn't breathe. But she didn't stop. Because she knew that if she confronted him, he'd run. He'd disappear. He'd take the money and leave all those people with nothing. So she waited. She waited until she had everything she needed. And then, 2 days before the wedding, she sent the first anonymous tip to the police. She knew it would take time for them to investigate. She knew Daniel would find out eventually. And she knew that when he did, he'd panic. She just didn't know he'd cancel the wedding. That part, she didn't plan. When his text came through on Valentine's Day, "I can't do this," Emily felt a strange mix of relief and rage. Relief because it meant he was scared. Rage because even now, even after everything, he was too much of a coward to face her. So she let the wedding fall apart. She let herself be humiliated in front of 200 people. Because she knew it didn't matter. She knew that in a few weeks, maybe a few months, the truth would come out. And when it did, everyone would know exactly who Daniel Brooks really was. If you're still here, subscribe, because stories like this only work when people stay. On March 12, 2025, Daniel Brooks was arrested at a motel outside Tijuana, Mexico. He'd been using a fake ID and paying for everything in cash. But eventually, the money ran out. And when it did, he made a mistake. He used his real credit card at a gas station. The charge pinged. Mexican authorities were notified. And within 6 hours, he was in custody. Extradition took 3 weeks. When he finally landed back in Portland, he was met by Detective Ramirez and 2 federal agents. He didn't say a word. The trial began in late June. The prosecution had 47 victims willing to testify. They had bank records, emails, recordings. They had everything. Daniel's defense tried to argue that he'd made poor business decisions, that he never intended to defraud anyone. But the evidence was overwhelming. On August 3, 2025, Daniel Brooks was convicted of wire fraud, money laundering, and conspiracy. He was sentenced to 12 years in federal prison. His assets were seized. His reputation was obliterated. And every major news outlet in the country ran the story. Portland groom who canceled Valentine's Day wedding convicted of multi-million-dollar fraud. Emily didn't attend the trial. She didn't give a statement. She didn't speak to the press. But on the day the verdict was read, she was sitting in a cafe 2 blocks from the courthouse, drinking coffee and reading a book. When her phone buzzed with the news alert, she glanced at it, took a sip of her coffee, and went back to her book. That night, Sarah called her. "Did you see? He got 12 years. Emily was quiet for a moment. "Yeah. I saw." Sarah paused. "How do you feel?" Emily thought about it. "Honestly? I feel free." And she meant it. Because for the first time in months, she didn't have to pretend. She didn't have to carry the weight of his lies. She didn't have to wonder when the truth would come out. It was over. And she could finally breathe. My mum said I can't hit 1,000 subscribers before today ends. Subscribe and let's prove her wrong. A year later, Emily moved to Seattle. She got a new job. A small apartment with a view of the water. She cut her hair. She started running again. She adopted a dog named Charlie. She didn't talk about Daniel. She didn't talk about the wedding. When people asked, she'd just say, "That's in the past." Her friends worried about her at first. They thought she'd be bitter, angry, broken. But she wasn't. She was lighter, calmer, more herself than she'd been in years. One evening, Sarah came to visit. They sat on Emily's balcony, watching the sun set over Puget Sound. Sarah finally asked the question she'd been holding onto for months. "Did you ever love him?" Emily didn't answer right away. She watched the light fade from the sky. The water turning from blue to gold to black. Finally, she said, "I thought I did. But I think I loved the idea of him more than I loved who he actually was." Sarah nodded. "Do you regret it? Any of it?" Emily shook her head. "No. Because if it hadn't happened, those 47 people would still be waiting for answers. And he'd still be out there, doing the same thing to someone else." Sarah smiled. "You're kind of a hero, you know that?" Emily laughed. "I'm not a hero. I just didn't let him get away with it. And maybe that's enough. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Was Emily right? Was what she did justice, or was it revenge? Would you have done the same thing, or would you have walked away? How would you feel if the person you trusted most in the world turned out to be someone you didn't know at all? And if you were in Emily's position, standing in that church, holding that text message, knowing everything you knew, what would you have done next? Comment below. I'm reading every single one. And if this story shocked you, the next one will leave you completely speechless. Thanks for watching.